What is up, guys? Welcome to Truth and Transparency. Hello. We're going to jump right into it again. I want to thank everybody for being here. Moderators, subs, members, thank you guys for being here. I found some stuff I want to show you guys. I think it is going to have a lot to do with the preliminary hearing and possibly something to do with that exculpatory evidence. So again, hello everybody. Good morning. If it's later for you, good evening. Home team, yes. We've all talked about the PCA and pain's probable cause. I want to talk about the statements of Dustin Blaker. So that's what we're going to do. Good old Hector, the projector, is with us. So I'm going to go ahead and go like this. Even enhance your viewing pleasure. I will be speaking as well. Pretty much his first paragraph, he is just stating, who he is, what he does. I want to point out that he wants it known and deems it important to say that upon our arrival, the Idaho State Police forensic team was on scene and was preparing to begin processing, the scene. So those English words that were taught at a very young age, that would mean to me that they had not begun to process the scene. I have after hearing the Gonsalveses speak a little bit more, when I've been reviewing some stuff, I have a question as to when exactly Payne talked to Jack D. He says the dog belonged to Gonsalves and her ex-boyfriend, Jack Decor. I found out from Payne's interview with Jack Decor on November 13th. So I'm curious, was that in person? Was it over the phone? Because I am under the impression that Jack drove to Coeur d'Alene. So I'm curious when Payne interviewed Jack D. But that's how he says he found out that the dog belonged to Jack. And Kaylee was through Payne's interview with Jack D. Now, the reference here to, as I entered the bedroom, this is going to be about the sheath. Take a look. I'm going to do this just a tad. Okay. I was later advised, again, guys, I was later advised by ISP. Okay. So he doesn't say that he was advised by, Payne up here. He says that I found out from Payne's interview. So did he watch Payne's interview with Jack? Did he listen to the recording? Because he doesn't say Payne told me that. So he wants that firsthand knowledge. So he's saying basically, in my opinion, that he either listened to this, saw this, read a report about Jack D, and then here, I was later advised by ISP. Here he's saying that he was advised by ISP. So once again, not coming from Payne, but he doesn't see the sheath. And the sheath was laying, according to ISP. Now, this is ISP forensic team, okay? This is the forensics team laying on the bed next to, not underneath, next to Mogen's right side. And that would be when you were looking from the bedroom door, her right side is going to be on the outside. Because it's like from the door, when you see somebody laying on a bed, what side is it on? Well, it's when you're looking from the door, it's on that body's right side when you're looking at it. Okay. Not underneath. Okay. Next to. Now, huge problem here for me. This sentence makes absolutely no fucking sense. On the evening of November 12th, 2022, Chapin, Kernoodle are seen by BF at the Sigma Chi house from approximately 9 p.m. Well, from approximately 9 p.m. What 9 to what? You would say, like, what is this? From approximately 9 p.m. BF also said that Chapin did not live in the King Road residence, but was a guest of Kernoodle's. Again, these are based on numerous interviews conducted by Moscow PD, ISP detectives, and FBI agents, as well as my review of evidence. I have learned the following. Well, from approximately what to what? That doesn't even make any sense. You're not giving another time stamp. Okay. Next. Okay. Here's the big one for me. DM and BF both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms, by approximately 4 a.m. in their rooms. That would mean that Kaylee and Maddie were in separate rooms. You understand that? By approximately 4 a.m. Not that they were both in Maddie's room. Lana, which edition is this PCA? This is Blaker's PCA statements. Okay, this is important, in my opinion. Okay. Again, these girls are both giving statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms, by approximately 4 a.m. That would be saying that they're in their separate rooms. That Maddie would have been in hers, Kaylee would have been in hers, Bethany's in hers, Dylan's in hers. Okay? That Xana's in hers. Then it says, this is with the exception of Kernoodle, who received a DoorDash order at the residence at approximately 4 a.m. Law enforcement identified the DoorDash delivery driver who reported this information. Now, Blaker puts the TikTok information in a different location than Payne does, all right? Because you'll have to read down further when it says, DM stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. And now this is what I've been telling everybody, that after now, when the investigators put out his affidavit and there's possible exculpatory with what Bethany saw and heard, this to me, when it says DM stated she originally went to sleep, I'm looking at it like in another interview, she could have said that she went to sleep downstairs. So that's how I look at that right now. DM stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom. But since she was interviewed multiple times, I believe that there's another interview out there where she's saying that she slept somewhere else. Again, DM stated she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. And this is where I think, and it'll be really, really interesting with where'd she go to sleep? Well, did she sleep downstairs? Did she sleep upstairs? And then what's this Bethany? Bethany, if her thing is, well, if you guys have statements that you're saying that everybody went to their rooms, see that? It's all gonna start clashing up, in my opinion. DM stated she looked out of her bedroom, but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the home. See, it says being in the house. Someone says there's somebody here. That doesn't mean that they're in the house. Remember, I had this conversation. Someone's here is like that there's somebody outside. That's what you say. You don't say that when you see somebody in your house. You say that if somebody's outside knocking or ringing the doorbell, or you hear somebody outside, oh, someone's here. But what's interesting to me is that DM stated she looked out of her bedroom but did not see anything. It doesn't talk about that she got up out of her bed, and it doesn't say that the door was closed. But then this next sentence here, DM stated she opened her door a second time. Okay. So did she really have 4 experiences? Because there could be multiple experiences until she starts doing the whole door opening and closing thing. Also, is this what's leading investigators to believe that this was a targeted attack because Dylan's bedroom door was wide open and nobody tried to come in there? And then she ends up shutting it. But none of that's even said. It's very awkward. The 417 of the dog barking. Well, I really, really would like to know if Dylan or Bethany put in their statements that they heard a dog, because they're taking this off of a quote unquote Ring camera. Sorry, I'm also not in looking at chat when I'm trying to flip through this. So, also, I think Anne has a good argument to say that, well, wouldn't the dog start barking when somebody arrived there? So could it be possible that at 417, that's when somebody actually arrived versus is leaving? Right here, the last paragraph or the last sentence. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. Remember I said about that whole word believe? Okay. So my opinion is that Dylan never said that she ever thought that this person was the killer. Okay. And she made no mention of it in her statements to say, I saw him with a knife. I saw him, he was all bloody. That last sentence tells me that Dylan gave no statement that she thought that was the killer, or that person was the killer. So I'm curious to see if in her statement she says that, because this leads me to believe that she did not. And then remember the whole comments of based on DM statements to law enforcement. The combination of DM statements to law enforcement Review of forensic download of records from BF and DM. So do you see how they're not using BF statements? This is where I think the exculpatory evidence lies, because they're not using BF statements. And remember when this first happened, we thought they're not using BF statements because she was asleep. Okay, so then she didn't have any statements. All right, when this first came out. Well, based on what the investigator in his affidavit leads me to believe, is that Bethany did say something. Bethany did say she, there is things that she saw. There is things that she heard based on the investigator's affidavit, that he believes that Bethany possibly has exculpatory evidence for the defendant. This is what this paragraph to me is about, because they have no mention of Bethany here. And this is huge because this is about the time this is their narrow of the crime, the time of the crime. The time of the crime is on Dylan's statement. Everything that Dylan, and I believe that Bethany's, whatever Bethany has, it totally goes against the 4 to 425 time frame. And that would be exculpatory to the defendant, because that's what they have. They have that white Elantra. That's who they say Brian Kohlberger is in that car. And that once that's like leaving the scene, so he can't be the killer if it happened after that. And if the car's not there and the killings happened before and he's not there yet, then he can't be the killer. Okay. So again, right here, this to me is what I believe the investigator is like, wait a second. If they actually go off of what Bethany's saying, and Bethany's ever said that she, her statements and what she heard, that makes this not possible. And now would that be exculpatory? And remember when we were all talking about this, we all have been saying, or a lot of people have been saying, that Dylan is the key to the prosecution's timeline. Again, the combination of DM statements to law enforcement, review of forensic downloads of records from BF and DM from their phones, and video of that vehicle. That's how they're coming up with, they believe that the crime happened between 4 and 425. That's it. So what Ann's going to do, so this is all about, News Nation came out with a poll and they said, what do you think the biggest hurdles are going to be for each side? Well, the biggest hurdle for the prosecution in my case is to keep this 4 to 425. They need to keep that as the time of the crime. If this moves at all, then Brian Kohlberger, that's their time frame for a reason, because that's Brian to them. So the biggest hurdle that I think the prosecution's going to have is this time frame, is being able to maintain that through the probable cause preliminary hearing. So that's my number one thing, is right here. That's what I think the prosecution's going to have the biggest hurdle with. Because I believe that Bethany has whatever her version is and whatever she saw and she heard, it contradicts this. And remember, at first, everybody thought that she was just sleeping. So there was only going to be Dylan's statements. That's, in my opinion, not true. In my opinion, Bethany, when she was interviewed, it was different. And this is, in my opinion, this is what would be exculpatory evidence. So moving on. Again, welcome to Truth and Transparency. Yeah, you guys have to go outside. So I do believe that it's also the next hurdle for the prosecution is going to be the fact that they're not using the victims' phones for timelines of their, you know, your phone's everything to your digital paper trail. And right here, they state it. It's very, very, very clear. They're not using the victims' phones for anything to do with being able to say that from 4 to 4:25 that that's when the crimes happen. And that's because I believe that the phones contradict that. Does everybody see that? I've never seen a case where you're using everybody besides the victims' cell phones to talk about the time of a crime that they would have been the victims of. Go find me a case that you can find that, because it's not there. I mean, unless the phones were never recovered, they were burner phones, things like, but you have, where are these victims' phones? I think this shoe print is going to be completely irrelevant. Again, now this is Blaker's. Remember, this is Blaker's, and this is what was used to get the search warrant for his apartment and office. Okay. Again, let's check. This is why I think this is not. This is going to blow up too. This whole shoe print and everything like that. At the end of the paragraph, what they say is that that this is consistent. This is consistent with DM's statements regarding the suspect's path of travel. Okay. And this is going to be so easily hurdled over by Anne because, number one, the night before, that house had over 100 to, they had 100 to 150 people in that house. King Road houses over there, they were rocking on that Friday with the fraternities and sororities having like those formal events. They all were pre-gaming, and then they went there afterwards. And then they had the football game on Saturday. So people were coming and trampling in and out of that house. And it took them on the second time to find this, mystery print. But to use that and to say this then sentence is just, wow. That's what you call a stretch. Okay. So right here, Blaker says that it appeared that suspect vehicle 1 was not displaying a front license plate. Okay. Does not make any mention about the back license plate. I think that this is interesting because at the time of the crime, Pennsylvania plates definitely look different than Idaho and Washington. So I'm curious to see. There was no mention about the back plate at all. So a hurdle I think that the prosecution's going to have here is the first time that the white Elantra appears on camera. They say is in Moscow is at 3:36 a.m. on the Indian Hills Drive. When you ask the FBI expert about him identifying that car on that video, you're going to ask that expert if he used any footage from this sighting. And then if he did, you're going to show it. And then you're going to say what points on this car make it a 2000 and, you're going to ask him to go over that. And then you're going to ask, well, the difference of time from when that you're saying it came from WSU, it's this many minutes and it only takes this long to get there. How do you account for the 15 minutes that are missing? Did he just pull over on the side of the road and just hang out? Then I was doing some, what do you want to call it? I took the video or the still from the gas station, and that was at 3:45. And so when you throw that in the mix and you're going to be able to show how long it would take, if you're going to say, is this the car? Is it not the car? Could it be the car? How does it get over on the gas station where that is? It's like 5 to 6 minute drive. If it's over at 3:29, it's just making all these loops in Moscow. Did you follow the cameras around the area from 3:29 to go back to the gas station? Can you locate where that car went before and after? Where did the car go that was on the gas station that went viral with the media? Again, that was never used in this. They've never, the police have never talked about that. That came out in the media. The police used stock images. Again, that's going to be a hurdle for them to explain why they use stock images. Before we get into all of this, I think that they're going to have to explain, okay, you have a lot of walkers in the area, okay, and people are walking back and forth. Clearly, you have the Banfield camera that you can use to just even show that. And so how were you able to exclude walkers that could have walked over from a house? Why are you saying that this crime could only have been committed by somebody that was driving? Because if you don't see somebody going into the home, you don't see somebody going into the home. Like the white Elantra doesn't go into the house. So do you physically see Brian go into that house? That's a hurdle for the prosecution. You see a vehicle, but you also see other vehicles. So that to me is the next hurdle. Is this, did you physically see Brian go in there? Did your eyewitnesses, did they see Brian? And all of those answers are no. So we don't know if that's his vehicle. Nobody saw him go in there, and there's no even footage of a person at that same time frame going into that home. That's a hurdle that I mean, think about it. You're just driving past a house that happens. I mean, that's like the Lacey Peterson case. But and to me, it's like the opposite way. I mean, that house was getting robbed across the street from Lacey. And then she goes and she's, disappears. But nobody thinks that those two could possibly be related. Moscow would think that that'd be related based on this. I think that there is supporting evidence. Saint Jenny says, even if Bethany says she heard and saw some things that contradict the timeline in the PCA/Dillon statements, it doesn't mean she's correct. There would have to be additional supporting evidence, and I think that there is. I think that there is. Moving on. So obviously this section of this statement from Blaker, this is all talking about that based on their knowledge of the what do you want to call it, of the area, based on their knowledge of this area. Okay, they're saying that I believe that this vehicle, when it left at 4:20, this is Blaker, based on my knowledge of the area and review of camera footage in the neighborhood. You guys, this is everything. Review of camera footage. Did you have 24-hour surveillance camera footage? Because they're just reviewing whatever a Ring camera that was turned into them in the area. If it didn't see a white Elantra at any time, okay, they're excluding it from ever going down that road. That is, yeah, I mean, you can do that to help speed up an investigation to get to certain points, but then when you have to like go into the courtroom and say, hey, well, we didn't see that car come down that street. Well, okay, what do you mean you didn't see it? Well, none of the Ring cameras went off. Okay. So just because the Ring camera didn't go off, that means that the car couldn't have gone down that street? That's not going to hold up. And now based on the area, on all the body cams that we've been showing, there are kids walking all over there at all hours of the night. There are other cars. It's a college campus. There's cars coming and going. There are kids, people coming and going, walking all over. But he believes that suspect vehicle 1 likely exited the neighborhood, Palouse River and Consega, and went out, and that the southern edge of Moscow proceeds into Whitman County. Eventually, the road leads to Pullman, Washington. Pullman, Washington is approximately 10 miles from Moscow. So you're saying he left and went into Pullman? These two areas are college towns, and people commonly travel back and forth between them. He has put this in writing, and so has Payne. This is going to be a hurdle for the prosecution. You are basically saying that people travel back and forth. It's common, it's normal. But now in the same breath, you want to say that Brian going back and forth or being over in Moscow on 12 different occasions is not normal? That doesn't even make any sense, because you're saying that it's normal. Law enforcement officers provided video footage of suspect vehicle 1 to forensic examiner with the FBI. Again, they're going to ask for the date of that. What's the date? And they wanted this FBI guy to identify the make and model. The forensic examiner has approximately 35 years. 35 years. So I think what Anne needs to do here is, did he identify any other vehicles? Why did you show him any other vehicles just besides this vehicle, to see if he can correctly identify other vehicles? Because there were for example, the DoorDash. What type of vehicle was the DoorDash in? Was the FBI expert given the DoorDash vehicle for them to say what's that vehicle? Even if you, I mean, at that point, you see that vehicle, you see it stop, you see it go to the house. You don't know that it's a DoorDash at that point. Don't you want to identify what type of vehicle that is? Of course you do. after reviewing the numerous observations of suspect vehicle 1, the forensic examiner initially, right, believed that suspect vehicle 1 was a 2011-2013 Hyundai Elantra. Upon further review, they indicated it could be. Now, how is it they? It's one person. Who is they? You asked one person to identify this vehicle. Now it's they. That it could also be between a 2011-2016 Hyundai Elantra. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, there's no damn way this is possible unless you have the shittiest clips of this vehicle, because there are identifying markers on this vehicle after the numerous conversations I've had with who I would consider experts. Car people are experts, man. They're insane about cars. Thank you. Anne's going to ask, again, this is going to be a hurdle for, I believe, the prosecution. Anne's going to ask, when did you go back to this guy, to these people, as they, you say, and say, hey, can you look at this again? Can this possibly be this? Oh yeah, when we found out that Brian Kohlberger drove a 2015 white Elantra. Okay, that's going to be great. So, I mean, is that how they're going to have to answer that? How are you going to answer that when the date shows that it's after it? When did you ask these experts to look at this again and say, hey, are you sure you're not wrong? Again, that's going to be a hurdle for the prosecution. And it says, because these were all what I believe videos of King area. Investigators were given access to video footage on the Washington State University campus. WSU maintains a series of surveillance cameras. A review, see how it says a review of that video versus like those, if like there's a ton of them, that video, I'd want to know what specific video they're referring to when you say that. And trust me, this is how you would want to break it down for them. You're going to make the cops look like they're inept. So this is all about. And then they go through, like I said, all of this. And you're going to ask them the date when they did this. And that the forensic examiner identified the vehicle observed in Pullman, Washington as being a 2014-2016 Hyundai Elantra. Now, the question is, did you ever go to ask that forensic investigator, did you ever go to ask him, are you sure about this car? Did you ever ask him to take a look at this again? And then you're going to ask this forensic investigator one question, which would be, so you identified two different vehicles, didn't you? And the answer is yes. You originally identified two different vehicles. That were miles apart from each other and hours apart from each other. Again, this is going over the timestamps when he's returning, allegedly. The path that they believe that he traveled, okay? So you're going to ask, this is what I think is going to be a hurdle for Blaker, is you're going to ask Blaker about this, and you're going to come to this page, and you're going to say, didn't you map out and show the route that you took, that you thought that the suspect took when leaving the murder scene? Okay. And by the way, guys, if you get them to move completely off of that time frame of 4 to 4:25, then you do realize that none of this matters, right? Because then this is, I Like they're not even dead yet. And he's over here off in a totally different area. He can't commit the murders because the way that they did all this, if you move those murders to 5 a.m., he is without a doubt with his phone in Genesis. Okay? But you'd ask Blaker about this, and you would say that you'd map this all out. Here's this this way that he came home, or what he did after initially the murders, and he drove all over. And then you just ask him one question, which is, well, why on page 19 do you say that the King Road residence contained a significant amount of blood? You would ask him because he wouldn't be able to answer this, but if these victims were stabbed and not immediately killed, would they have bled out? And would the significant amount of blood that you're talking about, would that actually be there over time versus, you said this happened so quickly, so there could be hardly any blood on him? This is what you'd be asked. I mean, because I have no idea, but that's what I'd be asking. I'd be asking things about the blood. And yes, you're stabbing 4 people, because I think when Bella had John on her channel, they talked about this, I believe, or maybe it was when we've done our own conversations. And there may be a significant amount of blood at the scene when it's all said and done, but that blood would have come out over time. So it depends on what happened during the act of it, and if certain arteries were hit, things like that. But here, I think somebody was asking about how much blood was in one of my past lives. Well, according to Blaker, the King Road residence contained a significant amount of blood. Well, what's a significant amount of blood? I'm just curious. I don't know. From the victims, and now he's saying to including cast off, blood stain patterns resulting from blood drops released from an object due to its motion, which, based on my training, makes it likely that this evidence was transferred to Kohlberger's person. So this brings me to the next hurdle, depending on what comes back from the car. Okay. Right here. I'm going to zoom in. Okay, right here. You guys, this is huge. This is a hurdle going to be, if there is no blood in that car, would it bother you? Is that going to be a hurdle for the prosecution? Based off of these PCAs and these statements and the crime scene? Yes. Yes, guys, yes, this is, yes. They had to have, you would think, check these drains, right? I mean, they don't know at the time if this perpetrator cut himself or herself, or if it was multiple people, and they attempted to, I don't know, wash their hands or, something at that crime scene, or even then at his apartment, right? So do you think that they took apart the sinks in any of the bathrooms, or the kitchen sink, anything like that. I don't know. So based on the location of the suspect vehicle and the 8458 phone immediately following the murders. Now, guys, I need you to help me with this. This is what doesn't make sense. His phone wasn't on. Brian's phone wasn't on. Okay? This is in Blaker's. You're not going to find this in Payne's. All right? So please check this out right here. Based on the locations, plural, of the suspect vehicle and the 8458 phone immediately following the murders. What's immediately? I would think immediately is at 425, right? 430. What's immediately? Because check this out. Immediately following the murders, it is probable that Kohlberger went home to his residence. At that time, it is likely that he still had blood or other trace evidence on his person, clothes, shoes. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Are you saying that Brian Kohlberger's car went one way and he went the other way? Are you saying he went straight home? Again, I'm going to read this again. Based on the locations of the suspect vehicle and the 8458 phone immediately following the murders, his phone wasn't on. His phone wasn't on, I thought. It is probable that Kohlberger went home immediately following the murders. He went home to his residence. At that time, it is likely that he still had blood or other trace evidence of his person, clothes, shoes, including skin cells or hair from the victims or from Gonsalves's dog. It is likely that some trace evidence was transferred to areas in his apartment through contact with the items worn during the attack. One likely location for the clothes, mask, shoes that he was wearing during the attack would be his residence. While I believe Kohlberger is visiting family in Pennsylvania over the current school break at WSU, I believe he intends to return for the start of the next semester because he wasn't fired, right? So I expect his belongings to still be in his residence. This is a hurdle for the prosecution, if you ask me, because I thought that he didn't go straight home. I thought that he drove all over the place. What do you guys think? This drunk turkey, this case is so weird. I love you guys. To date, we have not covered the weapon. So, notice no mention of the car, though. Again, though, this was to be able to, this affidavit was to be able to get to search the his apartment. I'm going to show you guys something else. Okay. So, Do you think it's going to be problematic for the prosecution when they're asked, why didn't you update to the public that you're looking for a 2014-15? Like it's outside of the 2011-2013. Why didn't you update that to the public? So does that mean that every tip and lead that you got in was actually not a tip and a lead that was worth a damn? Why didn't you talk to Brian? Literally just talks about how this is the way that they're going to be traveling back, doesn't go home, but I don't even understand that. Right here, if I think the prosecution right here, these officers, Daniel, and where's the other guy at? Kirk, isn't his name? Kirk, where's he at? I want to ask them one question, which is how many white Elantras did you come across? Did you turn in? How did you make this tip? Did you talk directly to Payne? You said that you did an inquiry on these white Elantras. So you did that's how he located it. So I'm curious to how many other white Elantras were there. And were you given a certain year to look for? Because right here it just says that asked area law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for white Honda Elantras versus what we were told. We were given specific years. This doesn't say that. And this happened on November 25th. And the same day that you're moving the vehicles of the victims is the same. You actually find and locate the car, Brian's car, you locate. Right before then, you move all the victims' vehicles. On November 29th, all the victims' vehicles get moved. And that's the same day. So right first thing in the morning on that same day, you locate Brian's vehicle. And then you move all the victims' vehicles to a quote unquote secure location. There he is. There's Curtis. The same day at approximately 12:58 a.m., Curtis, he was also looking for white Honda Elantras. So it took you 4 days to go through all the white Honda Elantras on campus? Because you were given that to be on the lookout on November 25th. And so you didn't come across it until November 29th. And then how many other white Elantras did you come across and did you turn over to Payne/Moscow? And now what if that comes back as we didn't turn over any? This is the only one we found. Let's see what we got in chat over here. Die Thrifty. Hey, Daniel, do you think Curtis will be a witness? 50 Cent. Curtis, he's talking about 50 Cent. He just happened to roll through BK Complex? Yeah, just like these two officers find the same vehicle within 20 minutes of each other. Did it go over the radio? Oh my God, hey guys, I located a white Elantra. Okay, did that ever happen before when you guys were locating white Elantras? Did you put it over the radio and everybody show up? And so, like, don't you think Anne is going to say, so you had access to Brian's apartment for how many days? And you waited till he left on December. You never talked to him, and then you waited till he left. So did you enter the property? So between December 13th and the time that he, because he's never been back to his apartment, So I think that what needs to be asked here, because this is important to me. If I was, because it's logical. He says I was reviewing. So look at this. So then remember, this is Blaker's. So Blaker, you reviewed Kohlberger's WA Washington State driver's license information photograph. Did you personally look at that? The license indicates that Kohlberger is a white male. Da, 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 da. Additionally, the photograph of Kohlberger shows that he has bushy eyebrows. That's your opinion. That's your opinion. Just like it would be Payne's opinion. What's bushy eyebrows? Okay. Additionally, the photograph of Kohlberger shows that he has bushy eyebrows. Wouldn't that be something that would have to be identified by Dylan? Because what you would deem bushy, maybe she wouldn't, and vice versa. Everybody looks like, all guys look like they have bushy eyebrows. But my answer to that, though, like if you're having like a dude to dude conversation, you guys would be like, I don't know, what do you mean bushy eyebrows? Like, here we have to show it to her. I mean, bushy. I mean, I guess it's bushy. I guess. I mean, what? But most men have bushy eyebrows because they're not plucking them and penciling them and you know. But it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what Payne or anybody. It's what's Dylan. Does Dylan think that those are bushy eyebrows? And then you have to ask yourself, is this enough to say that that's an identification? Oh, yeah, well, Dylan did mention bushy eyebrows. Are you serious? Well, what did Bethany mention? Well, Bethany mentioned that there was a bunch of girls at the house. So I want you guys to all follow along with this part of it. Immediately when they get this information, you have to ask what day they did all this. So the big important question here is, what date did you then do this? So did you ever show Dylan his picture? Did you ever show Dylan these eyebrows? Did she identify it as bushy eyebrows? But right here is then you want to ask, when did you then, it says further investigation, what date did they start doing this? Which is, you take Brian Kohlberger, you run him through the system, and you realize that he was pulled over on this date and another date, and then you want to pull up the body cam and you're looking at this stuff to get his number and run it through the towers to see if he was at the crime scene. Okay. And so you do that and you're able to get this telephone number, which I cannot wait to see how that was even given, because I've never gotten a ticket where I've given my phone number to the officer. But whatever. Not saying that it could happen. Sure, it happened. But I'm just curious on how it happened. So when you run it through, there's no hits on it. It was turned off. So did you do all of this with everybody? That's the question. And do you think that that's a hurdle? Do you think that that's a hurdle? How many people did you do this with? How many did you run and look at body cam? Did you run just even like the inner circle? Did you run all of their phones through the tower? Okay, yeah, and they were all on and they're all pinging in that area. In fact, did you get any search warrants for GPS location versus cell phone tower pings? Could anybody be GPS? Where were these GPS pings? And Darlene, this is sure making me evaluate everything differently. Well, thank you, Darlene. And thank you for the $11. It was really kind. In my opinion, they kept an eye on Kohlberger, but it wasn't till he left to PA. They probably thought he was fleeing that they honed in on him. I can't imagine they thought that he was fleeing. This is the reason why. Because it's break. They know that he's a professor or whatever you want to call him, grads, whatever the hell you want to call him. But everybody was fleeing then. It's fucking winter break. Everybody fled. But how about this? President Green told everybody to flee. Oh, yeah, if you guys want to leave and go take your classes and do the rest of the classes on Zoom or whatever, yeah. But he didn't. So nobody came forward to say that he looked like his hand had been through, 10 rounds with Rocky and Drago, that there was no marks on him. He went to his doctor's appointment. He had his hair cut. They can explain in this. His stuff was set to expire, so he had to get a new, license. And right here, investigators conducted electronic database queries and learned that the 8458 phone is a number issued by AT&T, period. Then it just ended. And then here, they want to talk about the fact that when he was pulled over, that he wasn't with anybody else. There was nobody else in the car. But check this out. In this report here, on August 21st, Brian Kohlberger was detained as part of a traffic stop that occurred in Moscow. At the time, Kohlberger, who was the sole occupant, was driving a white 2015 Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plate. And then again, upon review of that body cam in October, Kohlberger was the sole occupant and was driving a white 2015 Hyundai Elantra. Again, Pennsylvania plate. Now, hold on. I think that is... Okay. All right. Kohlberger's Elantra was then queried on December 15, 2022 by law enforcement. Hancock County, Indiana. On December 16th, they found surveillance of him in Albrights, Pennsylvania. They say right here that they talked to somebody right here. On November 18th, or they don't say that it happened on November 18th, but they say this was learned through communications with a Pennsylvania officer who is currently certified in the state of Pennsylvania. I want to know who brought it to their attention. Sorry. Who brought it to their attention that Pennsylvania, you don't have to have your front license plate. And how deep into the investigation when this was talked about, the whole them finding out that Pennsylvania, you didn't have to have your front license plate. Now, remember when I said that they mentioned that they put the 845 phone in to the data or to the AT&T towers, but they never talk about what came back from it here. Okay. And instead, because what I would think would happen is you'd pump that in and then you would see that it did not ping from your 3 to 5, that it's not on there, right? But they don't talk about that then. So I'm curious if they pumped it in and then since it wasn't there, if they put him aside, like, because I want to know what made you keep going down the path of investigating Brian. And why aren't you stating it right here? Why are you going in the PCA in the order? Because it's supposed to go in, like, I guess you could say, chronological order. You talk about all this other stuff, his WSU, he's all the information that you obtained about him. And then here's where you say that as part of this investigation, law enforcement obtained the search warrants to determine cellular devices that were pinging on the towers. That's what you would do first because you already had that warrant back. You had that on November 17th. You had cell towers. You'd be able to see who was utilizing them. So that would be the first thing that you did. So why are you making it seem like you did all of the other stuff and then you did this? So I think it needs to be explained. If I was Anne, I would ask the question of Payne, so when you came across this and you have his information, boom, you have the number, did you put it in? When did you put that into this? When did you take that and look at your data to see if it was pinging off of the 3 to 5 a.m. time frame of the murders? Wouldn't that be the first thing that you did? So you did all of this other stuff before you did that, and that's not gonna happen. He's gonna have to say, no, I didn't do it like that. I did it. You can't sit here and honestly tell yourself that you don't think that you're gonna look at all these reports and you're conducting all these interviews and you're coming across this stuff. Don't you think that you would have to ask somebody, hey, do you know a Brian Kohlberger? Hey, have you ever seen this person before? So none of that happened? you can't sit here and say that Payne went through finding all this stuff out about Brian and then did this part. And then did, as part of the investigation, law enforcement obtained search warrants to determine cellular devices that utilize cellular towers in close proximity. You had this on 11/17. That'd be the first thing that you would do once you had his phone number. After determining that Kohlberger was associated to both the 2015 white Hyundai Elantra and the 8458 phone, investigators reviewed these search warrant returns. Okay, when? When did you learn that in this? And you guys, that would be early on. That would be right away. That'd be like, because you're sitting there and you put his name through and you see his name pop up. And then this is where you get the whole bushy eyebrows. And then you see, oh, he was pulled over here. Oh, wait, we have body cam footage. Let's see what kind of car he has. But you wouldn't need to see what kind of car he has because his registration would pop up. And his registration would tell you that he has a 2015 white Elantra. Or at least an Elantra. Because all of our cars are registered. Right? So stay with me here. So this is all stuff that you would be able to get through like boom, boom. But right when you got to this point, which is here, 3 to 5, he's not pinging. He's not pinging. That happened early on before you would do all that other jazz. And if anybody says that it wouldn't happen in that order, I that's impossible that you would think that. Hey, start digging up everything that you can on this Kohlberger kid. And then when you're done with digging up everything on him, then I want you to go and see if his phone number matches any of the hits on the cell towers. Come on. That's not how that happens. How it happens is you got this ticket, you got this information, he gave over his number. His number was probably on the ticket as well, okay? That's the first thing you're going to do, pump it in there. Let's see if it's over there. Oh, no, it's not pinging on it. Is this the only lead you have? This is the only person you have? And then you have to go and look at the reports on when, if it matches up with, well, hey, this guy drives with 2015 Elantra. Let's go back. That matches the WSU, 2014 to 16. But Wendy, you're going to have to put this all together for Ann, and it should be so easy because all you're going to do is take the report dates of all their investigations. That's why you need the discovery. And you're going to put together in order what they did and how they did it based on the dates of their reports. And this is how they did their investigation. In the moment that step 3, okay, comes before step 1, that's when you were able to start seeing that, okay, no, you would never why are you doing this? For example, let me show you this. For example, when I did the Sheldon Jeter Jr. case, I put this whole discovery in order. Okay. And when I saw that none of these people left, so see when they entered in the crime scene and see when they leave the crime scene. when I saw that these Aliquippa police officers, okay, aren't tabbing out of the scene until the end of that, there was a shooting. They got to the body at 11:45. They cleared the scene at 3:30 in the morning. Okay. This is a crime scene entry log. Okay. This is what is going to be. Idaho has this for their case. When I saw this, okay, and then I went and I put all the reports. So when you get all the police reports, I put them all in order. And I printed them out twice because then I put them in order based on what each police officer was in charge of, any type of law enforcement. And then I put them in order based on the actual date and timestamp. And when I came across, see what they did here is they used surveillance, okay, from a convenience store. And every single vehicle that they saw got time stamped. Okay. And it said then the description of what vehicle it was. All right. Because they were trying to see what vehicles were going and coming right around the time of the murders that they thought was the time of the murders. So this is exactly what do you call it? That's exactly what Idaho would be doing. Okay. Something very similar. All right. Well, I come across a report that was dated the same day of the homicide. And right here. Right here. These are the investigative details. And I was able to determine that it said, while walking up to 127 Orchard Street, Officer Bitts advised me that the Chevy Traverse sitting in the driveway resembled the Chevy Traverse he and Corporate Miller observed on video surveillance from Two Cousins store located on Franklin Avenue near its intersection with Cochran Street. I went back and looked, and I said, wait a second. He said that Now I'm going to go back to this. On May 16th, at approximately 1:30, myself and Officer Bitts, because he's Miller, Bitts, responded to Two Cousins convenience store to locate any surveillance video that showed all vehicles coming from Keel Street onto Franklin Avenue. He's saying that they walked over to this Two Cousins convenience store to physically go inside and review this footage. The convenience store closed at midnight. There is no way that you can go into this convenience store. It is closed. Okay, here's my note. How? How did you get this? It's closed. But then I said, I'm going to go one step further. I know that it closes at midnight. They would have had to make a phone call to call somebody or go, do something, because it's really important. Because in this report, they are saying when they walked up to the Sheldon Jeter Jr.'s house that we observed while walking up to 127 Orchard Street, Officer Bitts advised me that, oh, wait, that's the Chevy Traverse sitting in the driveway. That resembled the Chevy Traverse that he and Corporate Miller observed on video surveillance from two cousins. Because they were able to, they said, get into two cousins to look at it the night of the murder. And that when they went to Sheldon's house at 3:30, oh yeah, look at that's what we saw on the surveillance. But check this out. How in the hell did you do that? When I then went ahead and took all of the CAD notes, okay, which dispatches you out wherever you're going. Okay, you have to sign it, like it dispatches you at all the different times that you do it. Okay, and there ain't no dispatch and you going over to two cousins to get in this surveillance camera. Okay, it never happened. You never did it. And then I double checked it even a third time with another way to do it. Okay, and that was via the Handy Dandy Crime Scene blog. Motherfucker, you never left the crime scene. Bits. Didn't leave the crime scene. You were there the whole time until 3:32. You didn't go into two cousins, you lying sack of shit. And guess what? I went and got the actual... When you have to take out evidence in the evidence locker, it says when you bring it in and take it out. This is what this type of form is. Okay? So not only are you lying, which means that you never saw his vehicle on a surveillance camera, okay? But how did you know that it would be on there? How did you know that? Because you were following him. That's how you knew. You were following him. And so what I did is I then took the two cousins' camera and I was able to find Mr. Bitz's frickin' vehicle. And I then took this handy dandy, amazing document, which, again, this is what Ann's going to be doing and that dude's doing, which is putting together this. Let's see. Right here. Where did you ever go? See, like 1:17 a.m., 1:22, 1:26 as it goes backwards, goes up. Yeah, no, you'd be over here. It tells you what you're doing. And they're all at 120, or I'm sorry, 246 Keel Street, which is where the murder happened. Okay. And they're running different stuff through. So this is all the stuff that goes over the radio. Okay. So it's going all through this, and I know what all that means, but it's not until right here. Boom. The next day, 826 Franklin Ave. Let's see here. 826 Franklin Ave. That is where two cousins is. Okay. And you don't get into two cousins and talk to anybody and get surveillance until right here when you did dispatch there at 1:01 in the afternoon on May 16th. You never saw any surveillance footage. Okay? Because you never got in there. And then before this, before you even went there, you went to Shaw Street and Keel Street. And you were walking around trying to look and see who had cameras in the area to fuck with them. And I can prove it. You little rat bastards. Get out of here. Be gone. So yeah, anyways, that's how that all works. And but this report right here, this is what they it will look like for, back it up. This is what you're going to be looking at with this case. They're going to be taking all those, right there, all those timestamps, and they're going to show like a white colored vehicle with an illuminated light on the roof turns onto Keel or Cochran Street from Franklin. Then at this time, you see this. And this is the same, this is what I'm expecting in the Idaho 4 case. So yeah. Sheldon didn't kill nobody. Police officers set him up very, very badly. So yeah, and that is in Pennsylvania, and that was the Pennsylvania State Police that I believe with some of the Aliquippa police officers that did some dirty ass shit because they flat out lied. They never went into Two Cousins. There is no footage of them going into that store at that hour. There's no footage of anything. And in fact, they did not get the copy of the tape from the Two Cousins convenience store until the next day. But guess what? Sheldon's attorneys, shame on them. Fucking horrible. So, am I taking calls? You want to pick my brain? Sure, you can call me. Here, I'll just drop this, and then I'm gonna be closing this out. Let's go back to this share screen. So when you want to say that there's no corruption out there, I've seen corruption. Sat through a murder trial of corruption, and it was super sad to see. And I don't want that for these victims. So if you see something, say something. If you know something, be the difference. Because there's so many good cops out there, and it sucks that a couple rotten eggs have to ruin the good, because it's always over. Like you don't ever hear what the amazing things that police do. You always hear about the shitty things. So let's see here. Copy that. Here, I got something for you there, Dave. Bam, here, hit the link. You can, I'll give you a chance to pick my brain. Annie, Banny, Bo, Banny, Banana, Banana, Fanny. And anybody that says to defund the police, you're a moron. You're an absolute fucking moron. It's like anything in life. You're always going to have your good ones, and you're always going to have your shitty ones. What's up, girl? How you doing? Can you hear me there?
Hello.
Oh, yes, I can hear you. Hi there, Annie. Hi, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I am fabulous, actually. Well, with like one minor thing that's bothering me, but I'm sure you saw some of my posts or whatever, but TNT suffered, as well as other channels out there, suffered a loss with a really good person. So, but
I did not see that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that.
you didn't see that? Christy from
No.
Cleveland, who's called them before, member of the channel, Christy. She
all
of a sudden passed on May 1st.
Oh no.
Yeah, they don't know yet why, and it's not like OD or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's bad.
yeah. So it's but I know that she would want us, she was a really big advocate for finding true justice for the victims, and that's what we're going to do. And, but what do you got, girl? What do you got?
Well, okay, so I just wanted to a couple of things, and I'll be super quick because I know you
You
want
don't
to
have to
go.
be quick, girl.
Okay, so yesterday, right, my brain started going, and I'm glad you're actually going over this PCA again today because that's what I was doing yesterday. I was reading through it, and for like the 100th time,
Yeah.
and like, wait a minute.
Right.
So I took it upon myself to call my local police department and speak to a homicide detective that we have here. And I just kind of told them, I was like, listen, I'm kind of looking into a case that's out of state. I have a couple of questions on protocol, what would be standard protocol, kind of like across the board for departments. And because I'm all about the protocol, and I don't like it that so much protocol was not followed in this case. But anyway, so I asked him, in what circumstance, where there is multiple victims on a homicide scene, the victims are present at the scene. We have about a 9-hour gap of time where these victims were at the scene before the scene is discovered and 911 is called. And I asked him, would it be normal for the lead detective on the case to exclude the medical examiner's time of death, estimated time of death, from their probable cause affidavit when determining the time of the crime?
Okay.
Because I find that very odd that you would be, and I told him, because he was like, well, can you elaborate a little bit? And I said, well, basically, in this probable cause affidavit that I'm reading, they're using the survivor's phones to determine the time of the crime, and nowhere in the probable cause affidavit does it state they are using the medical examiner's estimated time of death based on, liver temps, stages of rigor, things like that. And he agreed 1000% that it is absolutely abnormal and incredibly problematic that if the medical examiner determined time of death by way of, which is normal protocol, it's usually going to be your medical examiner using liver temps and stages of rigor to give you an estimated time of death. This is how he explained it to me. And that the detectives on the case would use that to determine the time of the crime. They're not going to use cell phones unless, of course, they don't have the body.
Are you there?
No reason that you would disregard your medical examiner's estimated time of death. So I found that very interesting, and I wanted to kind of.
Yeah. So basically, the gist of it is, like, basically, where is this time of crime going to line up with what the medical examiner has determined as her range for the time of death?
No. What the problem is, what he said is problematic, is that if you have a medical examiner's report, so if you're, the way he explained it to me, if he's the lead detective on a homicide case, every homicide, the medical examiner does liver temp, stages of rigor, and they use that to determine the crime. Right. So that is what would be presented in your probable cause affidavit when going after the suspect who committed the crime. They're not going to use hearsay. They're not going to use someone's cell phone when they have a medical examiner's report. So I'm confused as to why we don't have a medical examiner.
I'm getting conflicting statements on that. But is Bella in chat? Because this is something that we actually talked about with John, because I feel the same way. Like, where does it come at a point that if, the whole point of like a probable cause is how can this be probable if, let's say, the medical examiner is saying that this crime happened between 6 and 9 a.m.? You get what I'm trying to, like, then everything that you've worked on, all of this stuff, like, it's not probable that he did this because you're saying that this crime happened at 4 to 4:25, right? Now, what if the medical examiner didn't come back with a report yet?
Well, when was this probable cause affidavit filed?
I think there was already one because they mentioned it in here. They're reading it. They're stating it. They're saying right here.
Well, I guess what I'm...
So I don't think they can say that, as they're saying right here. Chapin was also deceased with wounds later determined. Autopsy report provided by, the woman that did it. Dated, December 15th, 2022, to be caused by sharp. So I think everything was done by December 15th, it looks like, possibly. And then this was written up, December, I would say, between the 20.
Right, but didn't the Washington medical examiner do the autopsies?
Yeah,
not long after
the person in Spokane did everything. I don't know what the woman did. Honestly, the Mabut. I don't know. I don't know what she did.
I'm not talking about the coroner.
You're talking about the medical examiner. Yeah, that's who's in here. Correct. And from this day right here, it says the county medical examiner, and that's who they're deleting here. And that this autopsy is dated December 15th. So,
so the same day that the probable cause affidavit is filed is the same day they have the medical examiner's report, but we don't have the medical examiner's estimated time of death for the victims.
What was that question again?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is if the probable cause affidavit was also the same day as the medical examiner's report, December 15th.
That's the date of the medical examiner's report, is December 15th. That's the date of the autopsy. So, the date
and
of
then the probable cause affidavit came out when?
It came out after it.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, is that you would have it. You'd have had
the medical examiner's report already before your probable cause affidavit is written and filed, and you're not including the medical examiner's estimated time of death for the victims. I mean, maybe everybody else can call around to some homicide detectives in their area and ask why it wouldn't be used. But if you already have it, you should be going by whatever your medical examiner determined to be time of death for the victims. You shouldn't be using cell phones.
Well, they're not using I think this is what's going to be interesting about it is they're not saying the time of death. They're saying the time of crime. So they're saying the time of crime happened there. And
your time of death is going to give you the time of the crime. If your medical examiner is saying,
not necessarily. I could stab you. Yeah, I could stab you, and then you could bleed out and not die for, I don't know.
What I'm saying is that if your medical examiner, does the autopsies, determines, say, this person, I estimate this person died at, say 3 o'clock in the morning, right? Or say even later, like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, that's what you'd be going with. You would just be using your
That's what I was talking to John. That's what I was talking about with the police officers is I'm getting mixed reports on that. They say that they do their probable cause and they don't even look at that stuff because it's not in their findings. They're doing a investigation based on X, Y, and Z. So that's where, because what you're saying, I think where it's all going to come out is, okay, this is what their probable cause is. But then when you compare it to what actually the medical examiner would be testifying to, it's going to poke holes all by itself at the probable cause. Does that make sense? But I think that, So what I was trying to get to the bottom of is that cops actually have told me that what a medical examiner does, it has nothing to do with our investigation. in how we would go about doing something like this. That is
Well, I'm not
verbatim.
even saying that what the medical examiner says would determine your investigation. What I'm merely pointing out is that if you have your medical examiner's report for time of death on victims, you would not at that point negate that and then just go by some cell phones. You have your medical examiner telling you, I believe this person died at this time and this person died at this time. And
Correct.
that's what you would go by.
And see, this is what I'm going to tell you. It's going to be tricky here. You have four different victims. They all didn't die at the same time. Okay. And they were stabbed. And that's why I was really listening to what Kaylee's mom had said when she said that she couldn't recover. She was so badly, that she couldn't recover from it. So I want to know, because nobody was just, I don't want to be sounding so morbid or whatever. Nobody was, these people were stabbed. They weren't, their necks slit and boom, they're dead immediately. So I don't know how long it took these victims to technically die versus the time of the crime. If I stab you and I wound you to the point that, remember this whole thing about calling 911? If somebody's in there screaming for help, okay, and you just don't call 911, they're not dead right when I stab them. They could be dead an hour later.
Right.
So I think that's that's going to be interesting to me to hear, okay, how is that going to play in the favor of, is that going to help or hurt? I don't know.
Right. Well, that's kind of where I'm going with this. I feel like Anne is going to be like, so can you please explain why you were using cell phones when your medical examiner is telling you this is what time they died? I believe this. Do you get what I'm saying?
That's what they're going to argue. That's the thing, is I think they're going to argue that the time of death, and I'm on this side with it. Time of death is different than time of crime, unless you are dying instantly. And that's what somebody's going to have to testify to. Did these stabs kill them instantly? And I don't think that they did. That's probably part of it. As a parent, I would not want to sit through and listen to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I think that's going to be the argument, is that these police are saying that these victims were stabbed between 4 and 4:25. Now, when they died from the stabs, that's not on us. Because people, so they can argue. So you're going to sit here and tell me that one of them was alive until 6 a.m., 7 a.m.? You get what I'm saying? That's why I think it's going to be, there's 4 people.
Well, even if that is
the prosecution's going to play. They're going to play that they're going to play that in their favor as much as they can. And I think Anne's going to have, I think that's where it's going to come on that's where she's going to have no choice but to go after the people that would have been in that home hearing them. So they're sitting there, nobody's hearing them.
That's what I'm saying. Even if the medical examiner, they were alive until 6, 7. Right. So if people were still alive and bleeding out until 6, 7 in the morning, and these roommates claim they didn't hear it, that's just another. Do you get what I'm saying?
I think it's going to be a catch. I think it's, if you go this way with it, then how do the roommates not hear somebody screaming out for help? And they're going to say, because they couldn't, they damaged that part of the lung, so then you couldn't hear that. It's going to be too much of this, too many possibility type of things, and
it's incredibly problematic.
Yeah, but I think that if you move the time, that's why I want everyone to stop talking about the time of death. We want to talk about the time of the crime. But if you have eyewitness statements that are going to be putting these victims alive past 4:00 in the morning, then how is it Brian Kohlberger? Because you're living and dying with it being the time of the crime between 4 and 4:25. And that's where I think you're.
Even if the coroner determined, even if the medical examiner determined they were deceased
and then as a jury.
3
And then as a jury member, you're going to sit there and I'm going to have to ask myself, okay, do I believe that these victims, if it says that they died at 6, let's say that she comes back and she gives a time frame between, they die between, let's just say 5 and 6, or even 4 and 6. Okay. I think that then as a juror, you're going to But if it gets pushed even past 6 a.m.,
Right.
you're gonna have to sell me on the fact that none of these people were able to scream out for help, even though they were stabbed. I mean, and they weren't able to like.
Right. Whether it was earlier,
Scream
whether
for
it's
help.
before 4 a.m. or after 5 a.m., it's going to be problematic. Unless this medical examiner can pinpoint, yes, the 4 a.m. timeline. Anything outside of that is, what do you do with that, right? Because I'm going to take the medical examiner's word over any of these police. That's for sure. If the medical examiner,
I want to also know if any of the bodies were moved.
right? Agreed.
And then then I want to know, and I want to talk about, that this one knife allegedly did all of this. Well, I want to start talking about the wounds, and I want to start looking at, can that knife even do what some of these wounds, you know what I mean? Just depending on like the size of it, and see that's,
Yeah, I mean, the wound patterns are going to be similar. If it's one knife, only one knife, you're going to have similar wound patterns across all four. Okay. Some of them might be different depending on the person's strength, if they got a little bit tired out or whatever. But we're talking about, you're going to be on some serious adrenaline at this point by the time you're getting to the second or the third one. So you're still going to have similar wound patterns if it is only one object that is used. But if you have, 4 victims and they all have differentiating wound patterns, that's also going to be problematic, because then that brings into play other weapons. So then at that point, we have to believe he's Jason Bourne, and, that's also going to be problematic. So
I'm interested in also the blood transfer. We're going to know I believe that we're going to know the order based on blood, whatever that knife going in people. So where was the blood found? Was it found? You get what I'm trying to say? The first person being stabbed, then the second, third, fourth.
Right.
I think
you're going to have blood from the second to the third to the fourth. Right.
Mm-hmm. Also, I'm very, very interested in is I can't get like, this is interesting to me, is this whole thing of them saying that they were in their rooms, their rooms, meaning, does that mean Kaylee was in her room? They were all in their rooms. Like who's where what? So who walked around to check that out?
Well, not even that, but if they were all asleep in their rooms, then why did forensics spend like 8 hours in the living room under the good vibe sign, stepping over something, photographing it, swabbing it? I mean, they weren't in their room.
They were taking all the DNA off of all the stuff that was going on in that. I mean, they're getting all those DNA samples from, that house has to have so much DNA.
What I'm saying is that if you have a quadruple homicide where everybody was supposedly in their rooms when they were killed, okay? That's what we're being told. You're going to have very minimal evidence in the rest of the home.
I disagree. You have to get all the evidence. You have to get all the evidence of anybody that was in that home. So you're taking the sippy cup, like any of the red Solo cups.
I understand that. I'm talking about what we watched as far as forensics, spending as much time as they did in that living room, stepping over things, photographing it, and swabbing it. You're going to have minimal evidence in that area other than some, like, maybe a few blood drops, some bloody footprints from the perpetrator, but you're not going to have a whole entire mess unless there was something that happened out there. Do you understand? That would imply to me that they weren't all in their rooms and something happened in that area of the home for them to spend that much time there.
Well, we're just seeing something on loop. Are you just talking about like from the media? Like, I don't.
Well,
they processed that home. Like they did a lot of processing. I think that you have to do a lot. I mean, they took 4,000 photographs. 4,000 photographs.
Right.
So that should. I mean, there shouldn't be a piece of that house that's missed. 4,000 photographs. It's a lot of photographs. Right. And how are you only testing 113 pieces? Think about that.
Right.
There's only 100. It was 103, and then it became 113. So,
Well, the whole thing is, like I said, I've been saying it
I'm right there with you. I think that I believe that the medical examiner, again, this is just my opinion. I believe the medical examiner's report is going to clash, but they're going to try to sell it. They're going to try to sell it as that the time of crime is different than the time of death. And it's just going to be a matter of how that plays out.
Right. I don't know. That I personally, I'm of the opinion that this probable cause affidavit is like 95% fabricated. So that's probably why everybody has such a hard time understanding all the inconsistencies in it, because it's bullshit.
Yeah. And then what do you mean? What do you mean there's this sheath? Like,
don't even get me going.
They should be talking about this damn sheath.
Don't even get me going on that damn sheath, because I'm telling you, this is like, I'm not, they think we're stupid. And I don't like having my intelligence insulted. Okay. Especially by like law enforcement and stuff. Give me a fucking break. You're trying to tell me that you got paramedics arriving on scene same time as Ellie, and paramedics didn't go in? Because if paramedics went in, paramedics would have saw the sheath. It's not going to take 4 hours later for Detective Tolbert to find it. Your paramedics first on scene would have found it. Your first responding officers on scene would have found it. Well, I want to know when it was logged into the crime scene and by who. I want to see the crime log.
It's very simple, though. Why isn't Blaker saying that he saw the sheath, but he reviewed body cam? He says they talk about how they know where the dog was when they walked in the house.
You should have been. The fact of the matter is, the sheath would have been found by the paramedics assessing the victims at the scene. You're not going to have somebody else finding it, because your very first paramedic on scene who is assessing victims, determining if there is a survivor who needs CPR. They're going to move
there, 100%. They're going to have to testify to all that. Why didn't you go in? Who told you not to go in?
Right, exactly. I looked that up because I'm like,
who told you not to go in?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I purposely was like, wait, I've never heard of this before. And I looked it up because I'm like, wait, can law enforcement tell a paramedic that they can't go in? And from every answer I got, it's a hard no.
Mabat said she couldn't go in. They were doing their thing.
From what I understand, it's like law, it's standard practice and protocol. Your paramedics go in, period. Even if law enforcement says everybody is deceased, it doesn't matter. Paramedics still go in to assess.
Right.
Just to make sure.
Especially in that type of, think about this. So they were supposed to be, these people that were responding, these first responders, these are inexperienced people, okay? For the most part, except, if Gunnarsson wants him to say that he's not, whatever. But the other people, they're younger, right? It's an unconscious person. Okay, yeah, let's dispatch. You got EMS. It's an unconscious person.
You're getting a 911 call for an unconscious person. You're immediately dispatching
and then
law
it starts
enforcement
passing,
and a paramedic.
And then his phone starts getting passed around. Okay, so you got to think that there's going to be some hysteria, right? Okay. I'm curious to know how long the 911 call is, because did it just did someone not shut it off, and maybe that's why they can't release it, because it ended up staying on for a very long time.
I'm curious if there even is a 911 call at this point, to be honest with you.
Well, I think that there is. I think it's problematic. I think it's definitely problematic. It's really not that difficult to say that, 911 was called by the roommate's cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to talk about the 911 call because it's part of our investigation. Or you can say we're not going to talk about the 911 call because it's part of our investigation, period. Everything about that. It's just wild. And then did you see yesterday when I dropped that last part of what Fry said at the end of that first press conference? It was a very simple question. Who was in? So the roommates were there, and he's like, other people were there. Because she specifically asked
others were home.
During the attack, were the roommates home? And maybe I should play it again here so that people could really see it, because it's very, very interesting, to say the least. But
I agree.
Here, let's see. I want to just show this really quick.
I'm going to mute so you can play it.
They were not injured.
So there were, sorry, I'm Emma Epperly with the Spokes Interview. Hi. So there were other roommates who lived at that residence. Were the roommates home at the time of the attack?
There was other people home at that time, but we're not just focusing just on them. We're focusing on everybody that may be coming and going from that residence.
So since they were home, was it a hostage situation?
No, it was not.
And then did...
Okay, here it is. Pay
so
attention.
There were, sorry, I'm Emma Epperly with the Spokes Interview. Hi. So there were other roommates who lived at that residence. Were the roommates home at the time of the attack?
There was other people home at that time.
Right there. She specifically asks, were the roommates home at the time of the attack? Okay, this is really important. It's a very simple question. Were the roommates home at the time of the attack? Yes or no? And I don't know, did he not hear the question? Because the answer is, why do you need to go word salad? You don't. I mean, here it is.
Sorry, I'm Emma Epperly with the Spokes Interview. Hi. So there were other roommates who lived at that residence. Were the roommates home at the time of the attack?
There was.
So he nods his head right away when she says there were other roommates that live in that residence, and he's like, he nods his head to say, "Yep, like right here."
So there were other roommates who lived at that residence. Were the roommates home at the time of the attack?
Okay, so he nodded, and then right here.
There was.
This is not during the 911 call. This is not after the 911 call. This is during the time of the attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And he says there's other people. Listen to this.
Was other people home at that time, but we're not.
And I mean, what?
Other people home. It's not their home.
Well, no, the other people home at the time. Like, there's other people home at the time.
I get what he said. Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, it's not their home. Yeah, but he doesn't talk about the roommates at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the question is about the roommates.
Or roommates who lived
So were they not there?
at that residence? Were the roommates home at the time of the attack?
There was other people home at that time, but we're not just focusing just on them. We're focusing on everybody that.
So we're not focusing on who? The other people that were in the home during the time of an attack?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. And I don't know if he didn't hear the question. And the question was, and maybe he's thinking that there was other people there during the time of that. No, the question was, were the roommates home during the attacks? Because I think she does this follow-up then. Let me see that order again, though. It's very, very interesting.
Maybe coming and going from that residence.
So since they were home, was it a hostage situation?
No, it was not.
And then did they didn't?
How does he know that it wasn't a hostage situation?
Mm.
He doesn't know anything else, but he can for certain say it was not a hostage situation. But at the end, he's like, I don't even know that answer. I don't even know who was there. I don't even know.
Don't even know who was there, but he knows others were home. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be interested to find out, and I hope, obviously, I'm sure the defense is going to do this. I would be very interested to find out exactly who and how many were on scene, and did they have their DNA and their fingerprints taken before they were cleared. I'm going to be very interested to know that. because according to the Gonzalez family, people were cleared within an hour. And I don't understand how you're clearing people within an hour. And if you did, I hope you took their DNA and their fingerprints.
Yeah. Hey, can you help Maud? Can you help Maud? I'm just what are you doing? Okay. I said, can you want to use the bathroom? You there? Sorry.
Okay.
Just making
Yeah,
sure.
so,
Just trying to get some extra mods in there.
yeah, so, I just, there's so much of it that doesn't make sense when it comes to like protocol and stuff. If you arrive on scene, you got 8 or 9, 10 people milling about. These are all the same people that are on the 911 call and present at a quadruple homicide. I'm taking everybody's DNA and fingerprints before they leave. You get what I'm saying? I'm getting swabs. I'm taking names. And no one's leaving until I know exactly why you're here, when you were called here, who called you here, how'd you even know this happened? You get what I'm saying? Doesn't make any sense. We have a highly contaminated crime scene, okay, with multiple people at it, and people were cleared within an hour? Doesn't make any sense.
Oh, you don't got, yeah, 100. 100. We're just going to start clearing everybody. We're going to start clearing everybody. And it's just, it's, you don't even know what's going on. And we're just going to start clearing people. And you don't even know the stories. And I get it. He's the chief. He's not the investigator. So I mean, maybe they need to start changing up how they let the public and have the investigator start talking during press conferences, because Chief Fry, I get it. Like, he's not the investigator. He wasn't doing any of this, in my opinion. I understand.
Well, I'm not saying Chief Fry was. What I'm saying is
my point is that you
911 call.
Yeah, but you can't. That's just a disservice. Like, if you don't, if I'm not the investigator, I have no idea what's going on. Then, if I'm not the investigator, why am I doing a press conference? I don't know these answers. So therefore, somebody has to stand up here with me, and then I can then delegate if I choose to have that answered or not. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, you're a complete idiot, in my opinion.
Right. And, you have this 911 call coming in at like noontime. Your lead investigators don't get on the scene until 4, but somehow between noon and 1 o'clock, multiple people have already been cleared and have left the scene. So who had the authority at that point to be clearing people and allowing them to leave the scene? I'm going to be interested to read that.
Yeah. And these are all like, that's what you're picking. That's what this preliminary hearing is all about, guys. It's all about this investigation. And you have probable cause. This is your guy. We're talking about 4 people murdered horribly. And
lots of protocol wasn't followed.
Yeah. And everybody says, hey, trust me, they don't have, they haven't shown everything. They haven't shown anything. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, we'll wait and see. But I'm telling you, the whole point of this episode is News Nation put out a poll. And you want to talk about hurdles? I'm telling you, there's more hurdles on the prosecution than there is the defense, in my opinion, because of the latest boom. I believe that Bethany, whatever she saw, whatever she heard, is going to be problematic for the 4 to 4:25 timeframe, like in a big way. And it's going to actually help and go more towards the medical examiner, in my opinion. And I think there's actually even just a sprinkle more, because it's exculpatory. And I get it.
Right.
People can say that it's semantics, whatever, blah, blah. There's a gag order. Much can't be said. Show me this blood in the car.
I don't think it's semantics.
Blood in the car. I want to see the blood in the car. I want to see all this. You show me all this blood in that car. Okay. You show me, but you come back with a little piece of hair that you're going to say that's from the dog. Okay. And nothing else. Wow. Isn't that?
Yeah. I don't think it's semantics. I think Richard, because
I don't think it's not semantics.
No, his background is actually being able to find exculpatory evidence.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
he's not going to put his career out there. You want to get the guy that did this. I'm sorry, but like, that's what this is all about. This is about sides. And I just hate when people talk like that. Like, this is, no prosecutor should want to prosecute and get the wrong person. It's just simple. you know?
If you're using words like exculpatory and exonerate, and you are
Yeah.
a investigator who has been doing this for a long time, you're not just, it's not like you're confusing the word and using it in the wrong way. He's using the word correctly because that's exactly what he means.
Yeah.
But either way.
Well, I love you, Annie. I love you, girl.
All right, I love you too.
All right, I'll talk to you soon, babe. Hey,
Bye.
hey, lay off those roids. I know you started taking steroids after that episode last night, so I'm gonna need you to lay off. Oh Lord. Gosh. I believe there's so many moving parts. And but what Blaker is saying, Brian going straight home afterwards, is a direct contradiction of everything that they've claimed. Saying where his phone was immediately after the murders, his phone was off. Like so if you have time to take a look at that Blaker statement, everybody's exhibit A, but take a chance, run this episode back. You guys rock. Much love. We'll be live tonight at 10 for all my late birds, 10 p.m. And we are going to Venmo you like crazy. Venmo transactions with Hector the Projector. What were people buying? When were they buying it? Who were they buying it from? Every Venmo transaction I possibly get my hands on over the course of this investigation, we're going to lay it all out there. Let's take a look at these Venmo transactions. Also, I'm sorry, but 1122 King Road had a completely different dynamic when Maddie lived there as a junior than compared to this year. That house was like, people were just like thrown together, I feel like, in it. So, this whole thing about the house being the target or whatever was going on in that house, I don't think that they would just say that for no reason. I think that that's a very interesting thing to say. So much as to say when Fry could not answer the simple question of were the roommates home during the attack? Well, there was other people there. Well, what? So the roommates were home and other people were there? Yeah. So we'll see you tonight. You guys rock. Keep being kind. How important is it going to be that the sixth roommate was no longer living there? Was there a fallout? Who was the sixth roommate? And why has it been so hush-hush? Why was Kaylee not around hardly anymore? You would think that you'd want to gobble up all the time that you can with your bestie, and the last thing that you'd want to do is not be around and, being at home. Why? You were looking forward to living together. Your senior year, you hadn't lived together the whole time of college. Now you finally got that opportunity, and something was up, y'all. I'm just like, not going to go live with my parents when I can be living with my best friend, and I'm having to pay for it. Them's the facts. Till next time.